1960 Daimler SP250 vs 1966 Sunbeam Tiger. You already know that England introduced American servicemen and women to light, nimble sports cars during and after World War II. And it's pretty well established that, as our service folk brought these cars back home and started racing them, many found them lacking in the oomph department. The fix? Swap in a Yank V8 for the wheezing four-banger most came with, as England's Sidney Allard had been doing with all manner of Yank V8 tests. Carroll Shelby became a master of this art, engineering and producing the AC-based Shelby Cobra and helping pupate Sunbeam's Caterpillar Slow Alpine into the Butterfly Quick Tiger. But we're willing to bet you don't know much about England's first attempt to execute the V8 sports car concept in-house, which was undertaken by its oldest automaker, Daimler. You may not even know how to pronounce the name Daimler, like Dame Edna, not Daimler, like the Mercedes brand parent, though it traces back to the same combustion engine and motor car pioneer. In 1891, Gottlieb Daimler sold fellow engineer and friend Frederick Sims the British rights to his patents, and by 1895, Sims had formed the Daimler Motor Company Limited to build engines and cars, with Gottlieb enlisted as a consulting engineer. Britain's oldest car company soon became known for its refined limousines, which chauffeured every British monarch from King Edward VII through Queen Elizabeth II, as well as other European royals. Then in 1950, a transmission failed while transporting King George VI, and the royal warrant business was transferred to Rolls-Royce. Before long, other wealthy Europeans followed suit, and Daimler found itself desperately searching for new markets and customers. The burgeoning sports car craze in America was irresistible. By 1951, Daimler's parent company had acquired the Ariel and Triumph motorcycle brands, and a management upheaval installed Edward Turner, the gifted engineer who designed the Ariel Square 4 and Triumph Speed twin engines, as chief executive of the automotive division, Daimler and the Bikes. He soon set about designing a family of V8 engines, a big one for the limos and a small one to power a British-born American-style sports car. The engine bristled with modern technology, including aluminum heads with fully machined hemispherical combustion chambers, hardened valve seats, and 70 degrees between the valves. A very high-mounted central camshaft with aluminum pushrods opened said valves, and double valve springs closed them reliably at engine speeds over 6,000 revolutions per minute. A thin cast aluminum oil pan carried more than 7 quarts of oil. With 8.2-to-1 compression, the compact, light-weight engine made 140 horsepower and 155 pounds-to-feet of what was often described as turbine-smooth torque. Being new to the sports car game, the sedan hacked down to form the ungainly thin 1953 Conquest Roadster hardly counts. Turner's team cribbed its chassis design from crosstown rival Triumph Motor Company. The motorcycle and car businesses split in 1936. The sturdy box section frame looks a lot like a TR2/TR3 stretched 4 inches longer and widened a bit. It shares the TR's front control arm design, and most part numbers, and its underslung leaf-sprung rear suspension setup. Frame rails pass beneath the live axle. 4-wheel disc brakes were cutting edge, however. Fiberglass bodywork was chosen to make the car light and inexpensive to till number 16,000, as opposed to number 120,000. The styling job, rushed to make the April 1959 New York Auto Show, was also headed by engineer Turner and his draftsman Jack Wilkes. In their haste, they may have tried to incorporate a few too many elements of automotive fashion. Headlamp fairings topped by Daimler-style turn signal winkers flow aft, resolving in prominent American-style tail fins. The smooth flanks are cluttered with swage lines that mimic pontoon fenders, and the low-set scalloped grille initially displayed without the extra-cost front bumper lent the car a fishy bottom feeder visage. The first batch of cars, including our test example, was shipped to America in late 1959. A 6,500-mile coast-to-coast publicity run made in 15 days helped prove the SP250's reliability, and performance tests on both sides of the pond were measuring 0-60 in well under 10 seconds with terminal velocities of 120 to 134 miles per hour and fuel economy in the mid-20 mpg. Duncan Black, of Black & Decker, won 8 firsts in 12 events to secure the SCCA E-Class Production Championship in 1960, surely a first for the Daimler brand. But the reports weren't all rosy. Road and Track found the weather sealing adequate, though not absolute, and the steering a little heavy during cornering. Sports Cars Illustrated complained about the top's 3 latches, 21 snaps, and fussy erecting procedure. Several publications noted severe cowl and steering wheel shake on rough roads, which sometimes led to doors flying open. Meanwhile, Coventry neighbor Jaguar was outgrowing its facilities, and, finding no room for expansion, seized an opportunity in May 1960 to purchase Daimler for number $3.4 million, the equivalent of $71 million in 2012. New boss Sir William Lyons was taken aback by the body quality of the SP250 and recalled all unsold models, including a boatload of them at sea, to effect repairs. These included extra chassis bracing and a U-shaped steel reinforcement in the cowl area. But with the stunning E-Type just months away from introduction, Lyons' heart was not really in the further development of the directly competitive SP250. Nevertheless, he personally took a swing at redesigning the body, see sidebar above. Alas, the little SP250 was put to pasture in October 1964 after just 2,652 examples had been built, 1,201 with left-hand drive. They were the last true Daimlers, though the V8 engine lived on through 1969 in a pricier Daimler rebadged Jag Mk2 sedan, dubbed variously 2.5 V8 or V8 250. Just a few months after the Daimler took its beau in New York, another British sports car that would evolve into its closest competitor, successor took the stage at the July 1959 Earl's Court Motor Show back home in London, the Sunbeam Alpine. It was also intended to woo American sports car buyers, so the company hired designer Kenneth Howes away from Ford to lead the design team, which may explain why the car vaguely resembles a 3/4 scale 56-57 Thunderbird. The design wore its fins a bit more comfortably than the Daimler. The all-steel unitized body shared several creature comforts with the SP250, like wind-up windows, plastic side curtains were the roadster norm, a telescoping steering wheel, and a removable hardtop, and trumped the Daimler with reclining seats and a soft top that was considerably easier to erect. But the smaller, much cheaper Alpine was in an entirely different league in the engine department, running a version of the Rapier sedan's 1494cc4 with a higher compression, 9.2-to-1, aluminum head and twin Zenith carburetors, good for 83 gross horsepower on premium fuel. The engine size increased through the years, to 1,592 and later 1725cc, but drivers racing Alpines against MGs and Porsches including factory pilots Jack Brabham and Sterling Moss begged for more power. The Daimler V8 was considered, but it didn't fit. A 1600cc Doc Alpha engine was considered. Enzo Ferrari was approached about designing a high-performance cylinder head and Weber carburation setup for the Alpine's engine, but he backed out of the deal at the 11th hour. American West Coast representative Ian Garrett knew that a Yank V8 was the answer, but the engineering team refused to consider the option, so he decided to build it himself. How hard could it be? Step 1, grab a yardstick and measure the Alpine's engine bay. Step 2, send some guys to local dealerships to measure V8s. He had hoped the aluminum Buick would fit, but no. Falcon 260? Just right. And as the only candidate engine with its distributor conveniently located at the front of the engine, the Ford mill could nestle back under the cowl heater core area with relative ease. Step 3, hire Carroll Shelby, the established engine transplant expert, to engineer the Alpine V8 swap. Shelby quoted the job at $10,000, requiring 8 weeks. Garrett managed to liquor up the company chairman's son, Brian Roots, and plead his case. He got the cash he needed with the admonition "Don't tell Dad." The 260 measured 3.5 inches longer and 20 inches taller than the Alpine's 4, so Shelby and project chief George Boscoff set to work modifying the firewall and tunnel to allow the Ford powertrain to sit as far back as possible. This helped weight distribution and accommodated the Ford's cooling system, but required replacing the rear steering berm and recirculating bulb box with a front steering MGA rack and pinion. Eager to prove the concept, Garrett also hired racer Ken Miles to do a quickie 260/automatic drivetrain swap, with no body modifications or engineering, which he did in 5 days for $600. Snuggling the engine right up against the radiator to clear the bodywork and steering gear, and using electric pusher fans for cooling. Its weight distribution was terrible, but it went like hell, and all who drove it emerged giggling like schoolchildren. The Shelby mule racked up 30,000 development miles on roads and tracks before being shipped to England to be sprung on an unsuspecting chairman, Lord Roots, and his factory engineering staff. Roots is said to have disappeared in a cloud of tire smoke and returned grinning from ear to ear. He declared the project a go, and suggested the name Tiger to commemorate Sunbeam's 1926 land speed record car of the same name. Development continued in England to verify Shelby's work, with final engineering duties and assembly farmed out to neighboring Jensen. In the end, the car gained roughly 285 pounds, with front-rear distribution shifting from the Alpine's 49-51% to 51-49. Like the SP250, the Tiger made its debut in New York in April 1964. Orders flooded in along with kudos from the press. Mechanics Illustrated's Uncle Tom McCahill pronounced it a snorting British bomb whose 260 V8 turns this 22 short into a full-bore Magnum cartridge that can stay with most of the hottest cars. Motor Trend praised its fast, flat cornering, communicative steering, and neutral handling after hot lap in Willow Springs. We also reported on the wide range of speed performance parts offered at the dealer level, from engine mods to traction bars, rear disc brakes, and more. Road and Track tested a 245 horsepower Stage I version, concluding that the 590/13 tires seem inadequate, the suspension needs additional strengthening, and one gets the impression of imposing upon the car to an unnecessary degree. Traction limitations meant that, up to about 60 miles per hour, the additional power does not really earn its money, but after 60 miles per hour, the modified car comes into its own. A Tiger campaigned by Don Spencer very nearly captured the SCCAB production title in 1965, before being reclassified and C with lot modifications banned.